o'clock. Should we get started?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So welcome everybody to the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards informational meeting. We are a group of teachers from the Gallatin Valley who have gone through the National Board process and achieved certification. And we have come together to encourage and support other teachers in that journey. And so we've been holding live meetings this spring all over the Valley at various schools, and we had one at the library. But our idea was to record a webinar as well for those teachers that couldn't attend any of those live meetings, or for those teachers that need to get the information from their pajamas on their couch later at night. And so we're recording this webinar right now, and it'll be on YouTube within the end of this week so that the information is out there and available for anyone interested. So we have some presenters here today, and I'll just say your name and where you're from, and if you just want to wave, then we can move on. So my name is Nikki Bradenberg. I'm a former classroom teacher and just recently got this position to be an instructional coach at Montana PBS. We have Christy Gaines, who is a TOSA and works for the curriculum department in Bozeman. We have Patti Journey, a teacher in Longfellow in Bozeman. Denise Mazuski is a teacher at Belgrade High School. Stephanie McBride is here from Chief Joseph in Bozeman. Dina Collins is a teacher at Montfortin in Bozeman. And Christine OShea is a teacher at Highlight. So these are just some of the many people that are here as a resource for you should you choose to pursue this journey. As you can see, we've got lots of different schools and districts represented, and we all represent different grade levels and different types of classrooms, and so hopefully there's somebody here that can assist you as you learn more about this process. I'm going to hand it over to Christy to talk a little bit more about the process.
Sure. So the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards was founded in 1987 to advance the quality of teaching and learning by maintaining high and rigorous standards for what accomplished teachers should know and be able to do. And they also provide a national voluntary system certifying teachers who meet these standards and advocate for related education reforms to capitalize on the expertise of National Board Certified Teachers. So these are just a few facts about board certified teachers around the nation. Over 112,000 teachers have achieved national board certification. I did a little research, and the state who has the highest percentage of nationally board certified teachers is North Carolina, with 21% of their teachers being nationally board certified. South Carolina follows closely behind. Montana falls somewhere in the 30th ranking. We've got 129 teachers in Montana currently nationally board certified, which is about 1% of our teaching population. So it would be fun to catch up to some of those other states. Wyoming is actually 5th in the nation in nationally board certified teachers. So we have a neighbor just to the south who's doing an amazing job. Those 29 NBCT leaders that it mentions on this slide are teachers from around the state, such as the group of us today presenting, who are just here to help support anyone who's interested in this process.
So National Board certification really starts by asking teachers to look really closely at their teaching and really find these 5 core propositions in their day-to-day work. When you read these are things that you know in your heart as a teacher. They're things that you could easily point to different parts of your day as evidence that you are living these 5 core propositions. National Board is about describing how these come alive in your day-to-day teaching, analyzing how they lead to student learning, and then reflecting on how you could grow your teaching practice and improve even more on what you're doing. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about all 5 of these core propositions And we're also going to weave them in with our own national board stories. We all came to the process for different reasons and with different expectations. And then I think we probably all got very similar results, and it probably changed the way we taught in a lot of different ways. My story was that before National Board, I taught with fidelity to the curriculum. My school got me a teaching series for both math and reading, and I taught those lessons just as they were written in the book. And what changed for me after I went through the National Board certification was my classroom was suddenly more student-centered. It wasn't about the lesson plans that the book gave me. It was about me creating activities and learning experiences for my students based on data and on what they need. And so a mantra I said to myself was, these learners, this setting. You know, we don't think about what the last year's group needed or what next year's group might need. We really focus on the kids in front of you. This picture I have here is an example of an activity I did. I taught 4th and 5th grade last year at a small rural school outside of Bozeman. And we were doing a unit on electricity. And it would have been very easy for me to just pick up the science textbook and teach lesson 1 and move on through there. But I really wanted to transform the classroom into this student-led learning environment. So I bought these little lab coats on Amazon that were it was like $20 for a package, just class set of them. And I made them little ID badges as if we worked in a laboratory. And so that's what you can see they're wearing there. And I turned our classroom into the electricity lab. And they put signs on the door, and so they didn't know what was happening. They came in from recess, and all of a sudden there was a sign on the door that we were now entering the electricity lab, and I handed them their badges and checked their badges at the door to make sure they had clearance to be in the lab that day. And every day was a very student-centered, here's a really big question. As scientists, we're going to work toward the answers. So here they're touching a plasma ball, and the big question was, what is this and how does it work? Very open-ended, and they had to spend the day testing it and playing with it, looking up resources, drawing pictures, creating their own hypothesis based on that, and then present their findings to the group. This was a lesson that did not occur to me before I was a National Board certified teacher. And it very much lends itself to this proposition number 1, which is being committed to the students and their learning. For me, it wasn't enough to teach the material in the textbook. It was important that they were engaged, that they were excited. That's why I gave them lab coats and ID badges, because it just elevated the excitement in the room and made them that much more interested in what I had to say. And that's just one of many stories I could share about how National Board really shaped my teaching. I'm going to pass it over to Christy to tell us about her journey.
Okay, thank you. I achieved my National Board certification this past December, and people who've spent time around me know I constantly speak about my passion for being a lifelong learner, but this process truly made me define what that meant for me. It challenged me to reflect on every aspect of my teaching and to the areas where I needed to grow, and it helped me to define exactly where I would look for support and knowledge in making those changes and how I would implement those changes in my classroom. And so I would also echo several of the pieces Nikki shared as well. I think you'll find that's a common thread. We all kind of took a different journey, but ended up in a very similar place. And I think it really made me focus on my on content knowledge and really think about that. So I'll talk just a little bit about Proposition 2, which is that teachers should know the subjects they teach and how to teach those subjects to students. So we all know that to be an accomplished teacher, you need to have a strong command of the subject matter you teach. There's much research out there about how pedagogical content knowledge is the basis for effective teaching, but it's so important to remember that that's not stagnant. It's something that's changing and evolving every day, and I really appreciated how this process asked me to consider my pedagogical knowledge and how to refresh it, how to breathe new life into it. And for an accomplished teacher, this just truly means being a lifelong learner. So now I will pass things on to Patti.
Hi, I'm Patti Ritter, and a little bit about myself. I didn't begin the NBC, I didn't take this on because timing is important. until my 23rd year of teaching, and it has forever changed my teaching practices. I find, and I would say that all teachers say the most important commodity we have is time. And going through this process has made me such an intentional teacher. And I try to use every minute of every day of my students' time as wisely as possible, because there's just so much to do. And that going through that MBC process, I really had to hone in on how I was using my time and why I was using my time, and then looking to see if I got the bang for the buck. Did I get the results that I was hoping for? I do mention here that, going through it as a teacher, it just reaffirmed my role as that ringmaster of the circus that we have some days, and that we are the designers of the classroom. And it is so important how we decide to spend time with kids and what we do with our students, which kind of leads us into Proposition 3, the third proposition, which talks about teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. And I understand that sentence to such a deeper level now than prior to the National Board certification process. I would think all teachers know that they are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning, but now I really understand what we're talking about, that this is connected to knowing your students, and not only saying that you know in each individual student, but I can show evidence of why I know a student is at a particular place in reading or where they are in math. And then I've got that data to support my conclusions, and then I use that data to create the learning experience that that particular child needs, that one next step that that child needs. So I know that teachers would say, yeah, they manage and monitor, but this takes it to a different level, that you're using that data, you collect that data, and you then use that data to make that child's learning experience and use that child's time wisely so that they move ahead. And it really gets to the heart of differentiation. So now on to Proposition 4. Who is up next? Denise.
Going through the National Board certification process really focused my instruction. That was not necessarily the reason why I went through National Board certification. For me was about money at first. And then going through the process really changed how I teach. From every conversation that I have with students, every comment I write on a paper, every question that I use to assess understanding, how I ask questions, it really focused all of those things on student learning. So I became much more reflective on how can I best meet my students' needs. And that actually leads into Proposition 4, which is all about teachers thinking systematically about their practice and then also learning from your experience. So teachers are dedicated to the pursuit of continuous growth, and accomplished teachers seek to deepen their knowledge and skills, and that in turn improves their professional judgment. We make so many decisions every single day, and experience and seeking out new strategies definitely helps us in that area. Accomplished teachers remain open to continuous learning. We're never going to get there. We have a new set of students each year, and so that means we've got a new strategy with those particular students. Most importantly, our goals, our educational goals need to be improved student learning. And in essence, and some of you have said it already, accomplished teachers are lifelong learners, and we use reflection to improve our practice. Passing it on to Stephanie.
So I can echo a lot of what has already been said as we get into Proposition 5. I also just certified this December in early adolescent mathematics, and I think just like everyone else has said, going into this process, I wasn't quite sure, besides like money and the certificate, what exactly I was going to get out of it. But it has definitely transformed my practice, because you have to look so deeply at what you are doing that it just kind of changes how you approach teaching. So one thing that I went through during my process was I thought I was doing a lot of good things in my classroom, and I participated in a lot of committees, but it really made me start asking these questions of, when you're participating in those committees, are you making changes on the school-wide level within your community that are going to impact your school and students for the better? Are you effectively collaborating with teachers so that the end goal, the end outcome is improving student learning? And I spend over half my day in collaborative environments. And so this really helped me shine a light on, was our collaboration truly effective? And were we implementing strategies to meet the needs of all our learners in those classes? So Proposition 5, I think, really asks you to open up your practice and step outside your classroom and look at what are other things happening within families and communities that are impacting your students, and how can you work collaboratively and gain knowledge about those things to improve your teaching practice within your own classroom, within your school.
All right. So my story is a little bit different. I didn't enter into my national boards until my 25th year of teaching, and I had made grade level changes, I made subject changes, I began teaching in health enhancement, and then went into the classroom. And after 25 years, I thought, what can I do differently to address student needs? And one of the things that I pushed for was the national board. Only after I'd been nominated for a presidential award in teaching science and was told, hey, you're one step closer to the national board, so you should go for it. And I thought, well, why not? I have 3 degrees now, and I am not interested in getting a PhD. And so I wanted to continue to work with students, and I thought this was the best path to take. One of the things that I really noticed is, yes, you get to know your students, but you also get to know your student needs and how you're going to help them best learn. What is their avenue that they're going to learn through? Not everyone learns the same way, and it just in assessing the student as well. So, giving examples of different types of tests or different types of activities. My picture refers to a digestion unit that we were doing, and I could teach by charts and diagrams, but for them to actually see what's occurring in the stomach and the small intestine and the large intestine is just amazing, I think. And so the National Board has really given me the opportunity to look, what are my students doing and how can I best help them? So that's where I went. And then as far as choosing your discipline area, there's 25 different certification areas. Some are specific to art. You have music, some of those. There's also exceptional needs, English, health enhancement, library media, science specific. And I know that Stephanie had talked specifically that she did a math line, where I did the middle childhood generalist. And I would say with all of these cert areas, it's on age, not grade level. And so you have to kind of explore to what your interests are to see what fits you first and best before making that decision, I think. And I don't know, are there other things that you guys would add to that as far as, you know, being able to make your choice? I mean, you really do have to explore, I think. I know that the discipline areas specific, like math and the reading literacy, those are content based, where the middle childhood generalist or the generalist areas were the early childhood, and that were everything. So you had social studies, you had math, you had science, you had health enhancement. All of those areas were included in the certification.
And I would possibly suggest connecting with someone who has earned national board certification in a particular area and ask questions before you settle in on one.
Yeah, I would agree.
If you're in a quandary about that.
I think a lot of it points to, you know, personal passion. You know, you're going to spend between 2 and 3 years pursuing this. So, you know, make sure it's an area you like and that you can commit to. For me, I got the literacy, reading, language arts for early and middle childhood. And for me, it was just a real passion for literacy. And that was an area that I felt I was teaching K1 at the time. And so that was an area that was very much a big part of those 2 grade levels. And so for me, it was an easy choice because that's what I felt most passionate about and what I really wanted to learn more about.
Well, and I thought that the reason that I chose the middle childhood generalist is because I had a passion for more than one area, and at that time, that was the push when I was going was, oh, you should do early childhood generalist. And so I thought, okay.
But another good tip is to talk to your principal. And once you commit to an area, you do not want to move out of the age level you're teaching or the subject area you're teaching. So you do want to inform your administration and let them know this is something you're taking on for the next few years and possibly the next few years, and you need some stability.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, we'll move on to Christine.
Hi, Christine OShea. I'm 3rd grade right now, but when I went through the national board process, I was teaching 1st grade. And I'm always looking to learn. I'm always like one of those innovative teachers, which I think we all are, that can't say no to new professional development. Something new comes down the road, you want to try it. And I remember having lunch with Patti Ritter, and she was telling me all about this certification process. And we were talking about maybe teaching abroad because she had done that in her past. I'm like, wow, that would be good to have in my resume. And then there was money involved too. And I'm like, wow, that sounds even better. And how it can open opportunities for you to become a better teacher and even extend opportunities beyond the classroom. And I could say that all of that has happened now that I've gotten certified. I learned about different holes that were in my instruction, especially with assessment. At the time with literacy, when I submitted my portfolios, I really found that I could be doing more to assess my students, and that really helped my practice and helped me understand where students were and what I needed to do to help them get there. Another key area was just getting to know your students in different ways. I always thought I knew my students well, but I found other ways to get to know them, as well as their parents, and different ways of connecting with them to get their learning on track. Because when I've learned as just a 1st grade teacher, when students feel like they have a connection to you, they want to do their best in the classroom. And that was an eye-opener for me. I also liked the fact that I saw the teaching profession now being elevated to a new level. And like other professions, like accountants have to take to become board certified, or doctors. And I was like, wow, finally teachers are getting the recognition they deserve. So I liked that aspect, especially since I was a career changer and used to be involved with high technology companies. And I left that career to go into teaching. And coming from that world, I saw more of that. And that was one thing that I saw that teaching didn't have. So I wanted to jump on board. And I always love learning new things and can improve myself. So it was the best professional development I've done. And opportunities have opened up since being certified, with being involved in other grants that I'm working on. and it's exciting. And it's exciting to be in a group of national board certified teachers, because like minds think alike, and the level of conversations and the learning that you can do by talking to folks that are in this process is incredible. I'll move on to the next slide. One of the things that you have to realize is that there's 4 components to this process. It's a little bit different than the process I went through, but there still were 4 components back then. One of them being assessment, and that's the test when you go to the testing center. And I remember people telling me about it. It's like, wow, it's like you're going into some secret CIA bunker or something. I remember having to scan my hand to go to the bathroom, and then you have to rescan, and it was like a big deal. And I was around all these other people that weren't teachers that were taking other board tests. So it is something that will test your content knowledge, and that's something that you'll receive an email with instructions for setting up your appointment and scheduling that. As far as the portfolio entries, there's component 2, 3, and 4. And this is where some of them are videotaped. I don't think there's videotapes with all 3 of them, but some of them are, where you're taking a video of you teaching and then analyzing that video and assessing your own teaching and pointing out evidence of student learning. And now the component 2 is differentiation, and 3 is teaching practice and learning environment, and 4 is effective and reflective practitioner. All of these entries, once you complete them, are submitted electronically, which is actually kind of nice. I did both during my process. First, I had the box that I had to submit, but then when I went through my second portfolio, I had to do it electronically, and I liked that process. It was actually pretty nice. Scores are received, they say, no later than December 31st. I remember when I received my score, it was around Thanksgiving. I don't know if that time frame between Thanksgiving and December 31st is still the time frame, but maybe someone can speak to that went through the new process. But go ahead.
Right, this last year was December 16th.
Yep.
Okay, so they did push it out a little bit longer. One other thing I can say about all the components, and whether it's the assessment or portfolio entry, I think you really have to analyze where you are in your life when you're going through this process and decide, okay, should I do the assessment first? Should I do the portfolio entry first? Which one should I do? And really read through the instructions and decide what order you're going to go into, because I think it does play a role in what's going on with other things in your life. And the most important thing I learned is I was so happy that I was organized, because I needed to be in order to keep track of everything. And I still have everything, so hopefully that'll come into play when I renew.
So does anyone want to cover this slide, or? No? I can just talk about it. So the big question everybody asks when they hear about this is, how much does it cost? And so this slide covers it. When I went through it, the expectation was you did it in 1 year, and then you were deeply depressed when that did not happen, and you felt like a failure because you had to continue on and do it in 2 years. So for me, I attempted to do it all in 1 year, and ended up the score wasn't high enough, and I had to I chose to redo 2 components again for a second year. Since then, they've looked at that, and they've listened to those stories and realized that there's really no reason we need to cram all of this into 1 year. And it's probably best practice and better for you as a teacher if you could spread it across between 1 to 3 years. And so you have that option. You can still go and try it all in 1 year. Each component is $475. Annually, you pay a fee to the national board of $75. And so obviously, if it takes 3 years, you get to pay that annual fee 3 times of $75. Whereas if you do it in 1 or 2, you only have to pay it 1 or 2 times. You also get 60 OPI renewal units from the state just for completing it, not even for certifying. So in Montana, that means that's renewing your 5-year contract. You just have that one certificate you have to enter, which once and done, which is pretty nice. And then the state just passed SB 115 last year. I believe it was last spring. And this is the state's effort to really promote national board in Montana. The union, Marco Farrow, and our union representatives were really instrumental in getting this passed through the legislature. And it's basically a commitment by the state that if your school district will give you a stipend for accomplishing this, then the state will also give you some money. When I was going through it, you got a one-time stipend of $3,000. And now this is a yearly stipend for the life of your certificate. So I'll have each of the people here come on and represent the different school districts and talk about what different school districts are doing. You will want to talk to your own district and find out what it would be for your district. So who wants to represent here?
I'll go ahead. At Montfortin, there is an annual stipend of $2,000 per year. Obviously, I was under the older renewal, and so I had a one-time award from the state of $3,000, but then that's it. And that was for my certificate is for 10 years. And so I know that now that would change, obviously, if they would get at Montfortin, the $2,000 from the school, and then another $1,000 from the state per year. Is it a one-time for the state, or is it per year?
It's annual. So, your teachers then would have a $3,000 every year for 5 years.
Nice.
And in Belgrade, the stipend is $2,500 each year. And then with this SB 115, it would be an additional $1,000 for that. So $3,500 each year. So it's definitely well worth it.
Bozeman has negotiated a $2,000 stipend from the district, plus this $1,000 from the state, so it would be $3,000 annually. No schools qualify for the high needs, and if you are teaching in a high needs district, you would get another $1,000 on top of the state from the state. So if that can be found online at OPI if your school is a high needs area.
So these are some dates and deadlines. If you are interested in pursuing this year, you have some time to think it through and to do some research and decide if it's right for you. You have until January 31st to register and pay that annual fee to National Board. You can change your certificate if you get in the generalist and realize you'd rather pursue something else. Your work is done. It needs to be turned in between April 1st and May 18th. They open the window April 1st and close it after May 18th. And I think for a lot of teachers, when we were going through the process, we kind of had that May 1st as a kind of a loose deadline, so that if you had any issues, you still had some time. And I think all mine got uploaded by around May 1st or so. Your testing window is there between March and June 15th. Does anyone know, do we still have to travel to take the test if we're in the Bozeman area?
Yes.
To Helena?
Helena and Billings.
Okay.
And with that, component 1 is the testing center, but it's not recommended to take the test first before delving into one of the portfolios, because there are, domain specific language that you want to be familiar with before you take component 1. So just consider that when you are deciding what you want to do and when you want to do it. You may not want to begin with the test.
I would
agree with that. Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, just in the sense that I did the early childhood generalist, and you had essay questions about all different topics and that, and not having gone through and analyzed, some of the work of students and that, I think it would have been tough to take that first. Others have, taken it first. So
the advice I got from a friend who was coaching me through the process was to take it afterward, because they really are looking for evidence of your specific standards in your writing. and you really, those standards become sort of engraved on your heart as you're going through the process. And so you go in and that language is already just part of how you speak now. And so she advised me to, before I go into the class, create a acronym or a mnemonic device for all of the standards, and to get in there immediately, because they don't let you bring in any paper or anything. You get paper and a pencil from them, and as quickly as you can write down that mnemonic device so that those standards are always key. And then every answer before you submit it, go through that and check off that you got each standard covered in your answer. And so I definitely would not, that would have been a very overwhelming piece of advice before I went through the process. And I definitely wouldn't have known those standards as well as I did by the end.
So I'll just jump in, since I am a content specialist and I did mathematics. My testing was very different than the generalist. So I think this is a situation where talking to someone who has gone through the process with the same certification area is really important, because for me, early adolescent math, I just literally took a math test. Okay. It was all math content knowledge. So for me, it didn't really matter at what point during the process I took it, because all it wanted to know was if I knew my math. I didn't have the pedagogy questions or the long essay questions like a lot of the other content areas did. So I think having a conversation with someone who has gone through the process in your certification area is important.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I actually did early generalist, and I'm happy that I took the test last, because I needed that time to study the areas that I felt I was weak in, especially health enhancement, since I had no background knowledge in that. And some of the early childhood development I needed to read up on too. So it was helpful that I waited.
Good. So there is support available in the state throughout the process. And one of those is the Jumpstart events that will be happening this summer. One is in Billings and one is in Missoula. Those are hosted by MEA MFT, and a certified ambassador, I can't remember her name now. She's in Billings.
Kate
Cordes.
What?
Kate Cordes.
Kate. That was it. Yeah. Leads those, and they are a deep dive into the standards and the core propositions, and helping you really position yourself to get going on this. Now, this is not a requirement. It's definitely optional, but it's highly recommended. This wasn't available when I was going through, and I definitely think it would have been nice to have this kind of just couple of days devoted to getting ready for the event. So you can register. I think we've got it here.
And I think Nicole, wasn't one of the things that they said too was to make sure you have your area kind of outlined, what you want to do.
Okay.
That.
Mm-hmm. Have chosen your certificate area and have a plan for which component you'll do first anyway.
Right.
Probably. Okay. And then this is just how to register. You need to go to the National Board site and set up an account there with your password. Don't lose that password, because when it's time to check your scores, you will need that password. It's still ingrained on my head. And then you would individually register for each component. Do you pay for it ahead of time or when you submit?
You pay for it ahead of time.
Okay.
Right. And I think for Jumpstart, what they ask is that you have paid the $75 registration fee. Okay. You don't have to pay for the component until the end of January. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you necessarily have to have your certification picked out, but you do there's a lot of generic information online at the National Board website that they want you to bring that, because they will go through the 5 core propositions. They'll go through that DNA kind of structure of the lesson and that kind of thing. So there are some generic aspects that address all certification areas that they go through during Jumpstart. And I also have heard from people going through the process right now, it is awesome. What they've walked away, the confidence that they have come away with after attending Jumpstart has just been huge. So I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, Patti, I can speak to that just a little bit, having just gone through the process. I would add that it is fairly important to have your certification area at least you have a really good idea, because they're going to ask you to print off most of that material and bring it with you. And I would say the other positive I got from Jumpstart, besides what you've all mentioned, is I didn't know other people in my area that were in my, in the Bozeman area who were doing the same certification as I was, but I did meet several teachers from Billings who were, and so they became a great support network for me in my specific certification area, which was really helpful. So that's just another plug for Jumpstart, that it's a great networking tool to meet others. So hopefully that clarifies a few of those questions.
Mm-hmm. It does cost $100, right, to attend Jumpstart? No, I'm not sure on that. I thought that's what I
don't believe so. I think that the registration fee, but you have to, your own travel expenses, your own, find your own stay in Missoula or your own stay in Missoula. I think they definitely want that commitment, but I don't believe they charge for Jumpstart. But
yeah, they do.
Oh, they do.
It's $100 if you're an MEA MFT member, and if you're not a member, it's $400.
Whoa.
Good to know.
Yeah. And I think, that Shelley Stanton gave me that information too. So I think that's what it is. So there really is, wanting to make sure teachers are committed to pursuing this. And sometimes you have to put your money where your mouth is in order to commit.
Yes.
So that's kind of the end of our information. And Dina, does your attendee have any questions for us that we could answer? Our lone participant?
I guess I was wondering, I don't know if you know that much about the Jumpstart, but do you walk away with some of your, a start on some of the work you're going to be doing with the National Board Certificate?
Nikki, I would say that I walked away with much of my pre-work done. They gave us several worksheets to work on where we started to look at each component and which standards were covered by that component. So no, I didn't walk away with any of my writing done, but I did walk away with some tools to use and some thinking. They'd help me organize my thinking.
And then we had the opportunity to attend trainings throughout our process that were more specific to each component. And we also were partnered with mentors that would read our writing and help us with more of those specifics. So there's support throughout the entire process. Okay. But Jumpstart, like Christy said, is really focused on getting you started, understanding the core propositions, and organizing how you're going to tackle National Board Certification.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it has to happen in your classroom with your students, because a lot of it is giving them learning activities and evaluating whether they work, and that really has to happen during the school year.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
So this is contact information for everyone who's here. I hope I got all that right. Please get in there and fix it if I didn't. Thank you so much for everybody giving up your time to record this. And I learned a ton just listening to all of you speak. I think we should get together and talk more often.